Before the era of digital archives, before streaming interfaces offered built-in episode guides, before wikis and encyclopedias and Memory Alpha could answer any question in seconds, there was this: a single book.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Remember that in all of these videos, there's going to be a link in the description that you can go to where you will actually be taken to an affiliate link on Amazon showing you the availability of the books that I've been discussing.
Compact, paperback, tightly printed, with Kirk and Spock on the front, the Star Trek Compendium by Alan Asherman wasn't the first fan guide, and it most certainly wasn't the last. But for many of us, it was the one that lasted. The one that sat on our shelves, got dog-eared in our backpacks, carried us to every possible rerun convention, to the pursuit night with a sense of confidence. It was collectively ours. And like all great Trek things, it began with a fan's question. Can this world be mapped? Alan Asherman said, yes. The original Star Trek Compendium was published by Pocket Books in 1981, but its roots go back even further to Asherman's work writing articles and episode summaries for licensed Trek publications in the late 1970s. A professional writer and researcher, Asherman brought something that earlier fan efforts couldn't: access. You see, while many early guides, like Bijo Trimble's Concordance, were labors of love built from close watching and fan memories, Asherman was granted official access to NBC and Paramount episode logs, press materials, and behind-the-scenes records. The result was a book that felt both lovingly crafted and studio approved. And that tension between fandom and formality, well, that's part of what made the book so special to us. So what was it about? What was inside? Well, for the 1981 edition, Asherman focused on the core original series, obviously the 79 episodes, the animated series, and the first motion picture, since those were all had been produced at the time. As you can see in the photographs, each episode received the treatment that each episode received disclosed the air dates and production numbers, complete story synopsises, cast lists and guest stars, behind-the-scenes notes, trivia and continuity cues, production notes, and goofs, which was something that officially had not been done up to this point. It also included a brief but memorable history of the show's development, from Roddenberry's original pitch to Desilu Studios to the cancellation, the fan movement, and the launch of the feature film era. What made the compendium work so well wasn't just the information. It was written with a clarity we had not seen before. The writing was clean, straightforward, and respectful of the material. Asherman never talked down to the reader. He didn't insert himself. He let the material shine all on its own. And let's face it, the timing really couldn't have been any better. This was 1981. Trek was back, but was still very uncertain. The motion picture had come and gone, beautiful but distant. A sequel was rumored, but nothing was confirmed. Next Generation was still 6 years away, and home video? Still in its infancy. Most fans were still catching episodes in reruns, scribbling notes during commercials, and debating character arcs by memory alone. There was no way really to look up many of these things unless you had the compendium. So in the very early days, for many of us, this was the first book that began to connect the dots. It told the story of Star Trek not as a static set of episodes, but as a living narrative with references, threads, and echoes. It gave shape to the idea that Trek could be studied, not just watched. That it deserved to be studied. Now, as Star Trek evolved, so did Asherman's guide. In 1986, after the release of Voyage Home, Pocket Books released a revised edition. It included coverage of the first 4 films, expanding the cast and crew lists, adding film-specific trivia and adjusting timeline references. And then for a third and final time in 1993, an expanded edition was released. This one included, obviously, the original 79 episodes, Star Trek the Animated Series, and the first 6 feature films. At that point, Alan Ashman's Compendium became the definitive guide for the TOS era, covering every part of it.
If you have any videos, photos, or documents that you would like to donate to us, please feel free to send them to jim@trek-world.com or submit them via the web at submit.trek-world.com.
While other books would go on to cover The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and beyond, the Compendium remained for a long time the gold standard for the era that started it all. Each new edition had kept the same tone, informative, modest, and packed with verified details. And that mattered, because for many of us, the Compendium was the difference between casual interest, full commitment, and maybe a little bit of borderline obsession. Because let's face it, Star Trek fans are known for our attention to detail. The way we notice background props, costume changes, transporter errors. For the way we obsess over continuity, voiceover tone, and whether or not Vulcans really felt emotion. The Compendium validated that instinct for us. It treated each episode like a shared piece of history. It listed broadcast order and production order. It offered context, which scripts were rewritten, which scripts reused footage, which casting choices appeared canon in some ways that no one expected. And it did all this with a tone that was neutral. Neutral, I said, never cold. Reading it felt like sitting with a fellow fan who just happened to have a better memory than you had, and a filing cabinet full of studio notes to call on. Now remember, Alan Ashman wasn't a showrunner. He wasn't a public figure in a fandom circuit. He didn't dominate convention panels or steer debates. But in his writing, he left a really deep imprint. He respected the material. He fact-checked. He clarified conflicting sources. He noted when episodes were re-edited for syndication or when casting choices changed mid-production. He also acknowledged fan knowledge. Where earlier guides might have generalized, Ashman got specific because he knew we would notice. He trusted the reader, and in doing so, he helped solidify something important. That Star Trek wasn't just worth watching, it was worth documenting. Many long-time listeners here at Trek World know how I feel about things needing to be documented from the earliest years. Alan Asherman is a bona fide 100% gold standard example of why that needs to be done. The Star Trek Compendium did not go on to exist in a vacuum. It helped lay the foundation for everything that followed, and you could have seen its influence in the Star Trek Encyclopedia by the Okudas, in the format of Trek DVDs and Blu-ray extras, trivia books and episode script collections, online guides, discussion forums, and memory alpha entries. It taught us how to track an episode, what to look for, what mattered. It made Trek feel accessible, not just for elite fans or insiders, but for anyone with curiosity and a desire to learn. And in an age before digital anything, it reminded us that knowledge is something we build and share. So if you grew up in the 80s or the early 90s as a Star Trek fan, chances are your shelf had 4 or 5 books that defined your relationship with the show. Remember back in time with me, and let's count them off. Number 1, The Making of Star Trek that gave us the story. Number 2, Mr. Scott's Guide to the Enterprise, which gave us the specs. Number 3, the Star Trek Concordance, which gave you cross-references. And number 4, the Star Trek Compendium, that gave us everything else. It was the companion you carried when you rewatched. the reference that you reached for when writing fan fiction, the sources you trusted when some other kid at school got a plot detail wrong. It wasn't flashy, but it was faithful. And in Trek, that counts for a lot. Today, the Star Trek Compendium is regrettably out of print. You can still find copies on eBay, at used bookstores in the description link that I have at the bottom here, and dusty boxes at fan swaps. But its impact lives on in how we catalog Trek, in how we talk about canon, and how we treat each new episode as part of something larger. Alan Asherman didn't just document the show, you see. He helped define how we remember it. Quietly, carefully, and with the kind of detail that only a true fan would ever bother to preserve. And I just wanted to thank you so much for visiting my channel to watch one of my videos. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you do enjoy this video, I would personally be very grateful if you might please consider subscribing to the channel. Why, you might ask? Well, viewer subscriptions help to ensure that I am able to continue providing more Trek World content like the video you just watched.